Yee! And welcome to Part of the Culture Studios. I wanted to do a video, the difference between the 1% and the 99%. This is a topic that's important to me because 1% of people, they live a certain way and 99% of people live a different way. And I heard this talk. I actually invested in seeing this guy named Stedman. It's Oprah's dude speak, and this is what he talked about. And it was actually like kind of life changing because I had seen some differences in my life, but I didn't understand why. The reason why this is important is literally because 1% of people drive the nicest cars. They live in a state of luxury. Their friend groups are a little bit more affluent and they're able to give more to charities. So if you're trying to change your life, you're going to want to listen to this and see if you exude any of the qualities of the 1% versus the 99%. So to get into it, the first thing that Stedman talked about was habits. The 99% versus the 1% have different habits. And I'll tell you the habits of the 99%. And what they do is they go to work, they work all day, they get off of work, they drink, they smoke, they watch Netflix, they may hang out with their family for a little bit, and then they go to bed and they wake up the next day and they go to work. When their paycheck comes in, they spend all of their paycheck on bills. They have nothing left. They might turn up on the weekends a little bit, and they do this for about 40 years until they retire, and then they live off of whatever's left. They don't really have any assets. Sometimes maybe they bought a home, but that's not a real asset if that's a different topic. But that's the habits of the 99%. The habits of the 1% is a little bit different. So first off, the 1% may or may not have a job, but we'll say they do go to work. So the 1% will go to work, but here's where the habits start to change. Once they get off of work, instead of smoking or drinking, they either study or they work on their side hustle or their side business and they put in work. So they may get off of work at 5, they may hang out with the family till 7, but from 7 to 10, 7 to 11, 7 to 12, they burn what's called the midnight oil. And they do this over a period of years. And so what happens is year one, you really can't see the difference between the 1% and the 99% because the 1% don't really have anything to show for it. All it is really knowledge. Maybe they have one or two customers, but after a year or two, you really start to see the difference. And so some of those differences is now the 1% are starting to buy assets or create assets. And so I can only use myself as an example. Actually, there's probably a lot of examples, but I would get off of work or I would bartend at night, and during the day I would build my business. And a lot of times when you go to a job, say you make $30 an hour, that's about $60,000 a year. So 30 times 8, so you can make about $240 at work for 8 hours of work. The 1%, you may sell a product or service where you can make that in 5, 10, 20 minutes just by closing a deal. And so those are some of the differences between the 1% and the 99%. And so what happens is also once a paycheck comes, that's where you're going to see the next difference. What happens is the paycheck comes in and the 1%ers, they take 10 to 40% and they either save it, they invest in the stock market, they buy assets. And so that's why after a year to 5 years, you start seeing these differences in income and lifestyle, because year one, you're not really going to be able to buy that many assets. But after 5 years of buying assets, now those assets are paying the 1%er. So he literally can work less and make the same as a 99%er. So I'll just leave it there. I just wanted to really test out my new studio, really see how everything is working and operating, see what changes I need to make. But even something like this, instead of just after work or once I'm done with business, just turning up, I'm going to take time and I'm going to build a business. I'm going to build a podcast. I'm going to build like I said, podcast, build a business. And so after a year, it may not be that big of a deal, but after 5 years, all of this skill set will eventually pay me and be able to turn into something more. So just ask yourself, are you a 1%er or are you a 99%er? I just wanted to share this. I've been doing my business mogul program every Wednesday. I've moved. I had some stuff happen with my vending machine business. My truck got into an accident. So I haven't been able to put in time, but next week, I hope to start my series back up. So I'm going to be using this setup. I'm going to be using other setups. So just wanted to test everything. So are you a 1%er or a 99%er? I'm out. Yee.